Hey there folks, so welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So I think it's fairly obvious that we live in uncertain times. While music critics and cultural anthropologists will debate how much the music that charts reflects the world around us, I think you could make a case the Hot 100 being the most unsettled and unstable it's been in some time. Because while you could make a story about Katy Perry collaborating with Migos, or the fight for dominance between One Direction members, or that Gorillaz for no discernible reason failed to sell enough to chart this week on the Hot 100, the big story is that for the third time in 3 weeks we've got a new #1 single, and like with the others, there's no clear indication of how long it will last at the top. And when you take a look deeper at our top 10, it's easy to see why. Let's not mince words. I'm the One by DJ Khaled featuring Justin Bieber, Quavo, Chance the Rapper, and Lil Wayne. It got to #1 because for once DJ Khaled's strategy of throwing as many artists at a song to rack up the hits actually managed to pay off. Why the strategy didn't work for Do You Mind earlier this year, I have no idea, but it racked up the sales, the YouTube, the streaming, and even airplay traction to take the #1. But again, how long I'm the One will last is an open question, because That's What I Like by Bruno Mars is somehow still gaining airplay, it's always had good sales, and streaming and YouTube are still solvent at #2. But it's facing the challenge of Despacito from Louis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and the remix with Justin Bieber up to #3. It might not be surging on airplay in the same way, but its sales and streaming are bigger, and it's always been a YouTube monster. Now this place is humble like Kendrick Lamar in a bit of an awkward place at #4. Sure, huge streaming, good YouTube, more airplay momentum than I personally expected, but sales slip back as the hype from Damn seems to be fading, which could be troubling for its longevity down the road. It did manage to pass Shape of You by Ed Sheeran down to #5, but that song is fading fast. With the exception of YouTube, it's losing consistently in all categories. And yet what somehow is actually sticking around is something just like this by the Chainsmokers featuring Coldplay at #6, mostly on a sales boost and strong airplay compensating for weaker streaming, although it actually did pick up a little bit in that category. It served to push back Mask Off by Future down to #7, which despite the music video seems to be slumping across the board and doesn't have the airplay to really afford such a loss right now. Compare that to I Spy by Kyle and Lil Yachty at #8, which it saw losses across the board, but it's got just enough radio to hold itself steady a little bit longer in the top 10. What doesn't have that radio is EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi Vert at #9, which thanks to YouTube streams being propped up despite abysmal sales. But to round out our top 10, It Ain't Me by Kygo and Selena Gomez is holding on with big airplay, okay sales, and streaming that, while small, seems to be picking up a little bit of traction, which that's promising. It's a great song. But on the opposite note are losers and dropouts. And it's kind of hard not to feel that the aftermath of Damn is still lingering here, because we had a busy week. Of the songs that are now gone, Mercy by Shawn Mendes, that's the biggest. But we also took out Moves by Big Sean, How Far I'll Go by Lily Cravalho, Deja Vu by J. Cole, and unfortunately Green Light by Lorde. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see it return when Melodrama finally drops. As for our losses, well, as you'd expect, the majority are from Kendrick Lamar, as Love with Zakari falls to 43, Loyalty with Rihanna slips down to 51, Triple X with U2 goes to 79, Ya falls to 89, and Element decomposes to 52. But we also had 3 more losses that are worth noting. Call on Me by Starly finally takes a hit to 97, Down by Marion Hill looks to be hitting the end of its momentum to 73, and most intriguingly for me, Chained to the Rhythm by Katy Perry and Skip Marley skids down to 74. I wouldn't call it a flop single just yet, but the fact that radio is dropping it this fast, especially for Katy Perry, that is not a good sign. While in comparison, when you take a look at our gains and especially our returning entries, we seem to get a lot of songs that just don't seem to be dying when you would expect. For one, Dwayne Johnson's You're Welcome from Moana is somehow back to 99, but so is El Amante by Nicky Jam to 96. Then there are the country songs making a slight recovery, but neither of them are all that good. Flatliner by Cole Swindle featuring Dierks Bentley to 98, and You Look Good by Lady Antebellum to 94. The biggest return came to Human by Rag & Bone Man, which I don't imagine will end up a hit, but it's kind of intriguing to see it here regardless. And speaking of songs that are picking up momentum out of nowhere, Goosebumps by Travis Scott and Kendrick Lamar seems to be on its 4th or 5th win, you really can't tell, up to 32. And due to a sudden sales influx, Believer by Imagine Dragons is up 2 to number 20. Then there's Now or Never by Halsey, which also somehow picked up sales and airplay to rise up to 38, along with another slight boost for Good Drank by 2 Chainz, Gucci Mane, and Quavo back up to 88. Seems to be going up and down all the time there. But the one that surprised me the most was If I Told You by Darius Rucker, saw up significantly to 62. Sure, good sales helped, but I'm surprised there was that much of an interest in such a milquetoast little country song. It's not bad, but I'm surprised it's getting this much momentum. But where things get significantly more interesting is our list of new arrivals. We got 10 this week. So let's start off with number 100, Woke Up Like This by Playboi Carti featuring Lil Uzi Vert.
Woke up to niggas talking like me, talk. Woke up to niggas sounding like me, talk. I woke up to niggas sounding like me. Woke up to niggas talking like me. Woke up to niggas sounding like me. Woke up to niggas talking like me.
I remember first seeing the name Playboi Carti and thinking that I recognize it, and turns out I actually did. Despite this being his first week on the Hot 100 with 2 songs off his sophomore mixtape cracking the very bottom of the charts, he's actually been around for a couple of years in the underground. Affiliated with ASAP Mob, originally starting off with the rap name Sir Cartier before changing it, and now he's doing the whole SoundCloud rap thing with Lil Uzi Vert here. And I can't be the only one who hears the irony of these two guys making a song complaining about how people are trying to sound like them, when in reality, if you know hip-hop music at all for the past 15 years, how painfully derivative and bland both them sound in the song, with the same nasal tone and the utterly interchangeable basic subject matter that we've heard for years here. The most I can say is that Lil Uzi Vert actually stays on flow for once, even if he blows it off at the end with his verse trying to rhyme merging with curtains. But beyond that, I think what disappoints me most here is actually the production. Yeah, the hook is kind of catchy, but the flattened synth loop against your bare bones trap beat that only picks up fragments of added tone, it sounds so cheap and thin. I might have my own personal issues with Metro Boomin, DJ Mustard, or Mike Well Made It, but you can at least tell their production has a budget to it, and given that there's no real edge to this to compensate for how cheap it sounds, knowing my luck, this will probably end up sticking around, but let's all hope and pray that it doesn't, okay? Number 93, Sweet Creature by Harry Styles.
Wherever I go, you bring me home. Sweet creature, sweet creature, now run out of road. You bring me home.
So, okay, it makes sense that Harry Styles is releasing the acoustic ballad after Sign of the Times in the build-up to that self-titled album on Friday. And for a love song, it's fine enough, mostly anchored in Styles' passionate delivery and lyrics that do feel heartfelt, although it's a little interesting how the mix builds a little bit of depth off the guitar as the song proceeds in its second half. But I think my main issue comes in that title that's repeatedly used as a term of endearment on the song, Sweet Creature. Yeah, I get that it's a reference from Shakespeare, but if you know anything about the passage of Othello that it's being pulled from, it's from a confession of Iago's describing Desdemona's cheating on Othello. Seriously, read the play, it's really good. But it's also a confession that's a complete lie. Now, granted, I don't think that Harry Styles is using that in the context of the song. He's playing like a straightforward love song, maybe even reclaiming the phrase. But when you know the Shakespearean context of the phrase, it just completely pulls me out of it. It's such an idiosyncratic turn of phrase, I can't divorce it from that context. Still, the song is passable enough, but I much preferred Sign of the Times, and I really hope the album is more like Sign of the Times than this. Number 91, Magnolia by Playboi Carti.
Every rock, running from the cop, shooting at the ops.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
Shooting at the ops, cause I run that block. Give me top, and my drop, top. I did hug on flop, flop, when I drop. I did hug on flop, flop, when I drop. I did hug on flop, flop, when I drop.
So now we get our second song from Playboi Carti, and at least the production's a little better. The blocky bubbles of bass, they aren't bad, and the melodic layers, while utterly flat and droning, they don't really offend me here. What I find a lot more distracting is that there is supposedly supposed to be anything interesting to this guy's content or delivery, because there really isn't. If I'm gonna blame Migos for anything in modern hip-hop right now, it'd be the popularization of ad-libs used for more than just punctuation as it was in the era of P. Diddy, whereas here's being used to fill up whole bars that somehow feel even more meaningless than usual. Of course, around all of it is about him spending money, stealing your chick, flubbing his rhymes, and sounding as bored as possible. And look, I've said this before, but I remember the era of crunk. Those beats were often just as thin, and the rapping was often just as bad, but there was at least intensity and energy, whereas this is just lazy, forgettable mediocrity. Next, number 90, Slow Hands by Niall Horan.
No chance that I'm leaving here without you on me. I know, yeah, I already know that there ain't no stopping your plans and those slow hands.
So I've gone on the record of probably being the most interested in the career progression of Niall Horan towards acoustic folk out of the people in One Direction, as he's also arguably one of the strongest songwriters behind the band, even if Harry Styles is making a major play for that right now. And given how much I still like This Town better than Sweet Creature when it comes to acoustic ballads at least, and I still think the song holds up, I hope that Slow Hands could work, and well, I think that it does. It's tough to say, because the most immediate thing to notice is how choppy and staccato the production feels, especially with how the vocals feel so clipped, as if the pickup was stopped abruptly instead of just letting them bounce off against the blocky groove, fully with the wiry guitar and the sharper bass line. In fact, I think the vocals are arguably the biggest problem with this song. The track is playing for a much rougher vibe than Niall's smooth, Bieber-esque tones are capable of really landing, even if he does bring a certain smirking charisma that does a lot to compensate. Outside of that, and that awkward sweat dripping down our dirty laundry line, I'm inclined to say that I actually kind of like this, but I think it'll play a lot better when Niall ages about 7 years, picks up some actual raw grit to his tone, because that's clearly the direction he wants to go in. He's getting there right now, but not there yet. But overall, still a good song. I like it. Number 87, Privacy by Chris Brown.
Shake that ass like boom chakalaka, boom chakalaka. We don't need nobody watching us. No eyes but your eyes. Ain't nobody here but you and me. Licking your private parts, and I know you love your privacy.
Whereas Chris Brown is not there, has never been there, and by the nine hells, I do not want to review his upcoming 40-song double album. But the truth is that Chris Brown's star has faded a lot in modern R&B, so I'm honestly a little bit surprised this charted at all. For one, his R&B vocals are still painfully limited by gratuitous auto-tune. And for another, I don't know who in their right mind wants to hear Chris Brown rap and describe his lover's ass shaking like boom shakalaka. He is picking up a little bit of a rasp in his delivery, which does make his rapping a little bit less nasal, and that is a good thing, but it also makes him sound more threatening than he should on the bar. Stop running from this dick. I ain't about to let you slide this time. And make no mistake, the rest of the sex references are just as filthy and yet nowhere close to attractive, as he describes how he needs her body in ways that she can't possibly understand, or how he's going to eat her out like a dinner date, or how he describes licking her private parts, a term that's never gonna sound sexy, and yet Chris Brown put it on the hook. And when you combine it with utterly forgettable, desaturated snaps and synths, it's just an ugly song that's nowhere close to as sexy as it thinks it is, especially as Chris Brown's delivery and the trap beat don't contribute to any sort of significant groove behind it. Again, it's not sexy. And seriously, can we just, like, as a collective culture, just kick Chris Brown to the curb like we should have done maybe like a decade ago? Please, I'm done with this. Number 76, Bon Appetit by Katy Perry featuring Migos.
Got me spread like a buffet, bon appetit, baby. Appetite for seduction, fresh out the oven, melting in your mouth, kinda loving. Bon appetit, baby.
This is one of those songs I saw and knew in my gut we were about to get a train wreck. Certainly that the buzz was suggesting. I mean, Katy Perry's collaborated with rappers before, but both Kanye West and Juicy J ended up looking worse for the effort, and Katy's odd fascination with trap music has never been a good look or sound for her. And yet, in a weird way, I'd say this might actually be a little bit better than Dark Horse or E.T., mostly because it's aiming to do a lot less. And the second blatant sex song that we managed to get new this week. And you know, with the richer synth again, against the lower bass groove against the thin, fizzy hi-hats, I can at least see some instrumental appeal, even if Katy Perry finds herself falling in the awkward spot of being very sexual but not quite as sexy as she thinks. But there's no way around it. This is all about cunnilingus using an all measure of food double entendres, and I thought Justin Timberlake thoroughly murdered this concept of song back in 2009 with Carry Out. And yet they're trying so hard to stretch this into something that sounds sexy, but it tilts so far overboard that even getting each member of Migos getting 1/3 of a verse can't save this. Seriously, spread out like a buffet, fresh out the oven. There's a danger zone when it comes to overloading the double entendre, so you can't almost start thinking about this literally with Migos literally eating Katy Perry. Look, this song is thoroughly misconceived and unbelievably stupid. But in a year where we got a song like called Body Like a Back Road and that became a hit, anything seems possible right now. So let's do Katy Perry and Migos a favor and forget this ever happened, please. Number 70, Thunder by Imagine Dragons.
Thunder, 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 thunder,
Thunder, feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Thunder, feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Thunder, thunder.
So apparently Imagine Dragons are gearing up for a new album, and with the bizarre continued success of Believer, seriously, if you're gonna rip off AWOL Nation this hard, at least give them some credit for it. We got a second single hitting the charts, and I think I might like this a fair bit more than Believer, but it's a bit of an odd choice for a single. For one, the vocals are a fair bit more restrained and controlled for an Imagine Dragons tune, and even despite the fake snap, the bassy beat, and the trap snares, this track actually does have a little bit more swell to it, courtesy of the blur of vocal samples that smother what actually sounds like an actual guitar, which actually rises to the forefront in the outro, and that was good. Granted, the lyrics are generic as all hell. If you're gonna compare the swell and intensity of this song to something like, say, The Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks over 25 years ago, you're gonna be underwhelmed by this, and that's kind of sad for a band called Imagine Dragons. You think a song about the thunder of your own success would actually have some firepower behind it, but this does feel like a step back in the right direction. I don't dislike it. It's not great or even all that good, sure, but it's closer to the better songs than Night Visions, and I can at least support that. Number 67, First Time by Kygo and Ellie Goulding.
Cigarettes, oh, $10 was a fat stack. I do it all again, oh. Bought my jacket and a snapback. Your dad's black Honda was a Maybach, oh. Restacks on the playback. I do it all again, oh.
So I'm not gonna lie, I was really excited to hear this song. It Ain't Me remains a great track that I'm thrilled has done well, and teaming up with Ellie Goulding strikes me as a good choice for Kygo, with Ellie Goulding bringing up her loose effervescence and abstract writing to Kygo's more natural grooves. Unfortunately, I'm not sure this is the best example of their collaboration, as I'm not sure either of them really brought their A game here. Kygo's probably the larger culprit to why the song doesn't quite work as well as it should. The weedy flutes blurred into the melody don't quite have the same groove against the brittle clicks and sandy touches, especially against the more earnest piano line and the stiffer beat that doesn't really flatter anyone. But Wistful Remembrance, that's also not a natural fit for Ellie Goulding's delivery, and you can definitely tell she did not write this. Now, I don't mind the content. It's not often that you get a Bon Iver reference showing up on the Hot 100, but I have to wonder if Ed Sheeran rubbed off a little bit on Ellie Goulding, because the details that she references seem smaller and more mundane than you would otherwise expect from her. It's a good song, let me stress this, but I can't help but feel a little bit more distant than I would like from this. I want to like this more, and I think Kygo could have done a lot better here. He's made better singles. That's all. Number 61, 1-800-273-8255 by Logic featuring Alessia, Cara, and Khalid.
I just wanna die. I don't wanna be alive. I don't wanna be alive. I just wanna die. And let me tell you why.
So look, I'll be reviewing Logic's new album, Everybody, very soon, but I heard worrisome things about this song ever since the album dropped. Not only was Logic working with Alessia Cara, a pop artist most well known right now by the mainstream for Scars for You're Beautiful, but he titled the song with the number of the US suicide hotline as a method to show that it's never the answer. And the buzz I heard is that he messed up this song epically, that he completely missed the mark here, and if I'm being brutally honest, I don't really think he did. Yeah, the whole shouts of who can relate are the absolute wrong artistic decision for the song, but it does feel like it's coming from a real earnest place, albeit a thuddingly heavy-handed one. And this has been an issue with really all the tracks that Logic has released thus far in preparation for everybody. It's got good sentiments, but the execution is aiming so broadly that it strips out the details that make songs about depression and suicide a lot trickier to pull off and feel personal while not seeming mawkish or overwrought, especially when you pair it with the very smooth and elegant pianos and strings and Alessia Cara playing the operator on the call, and then Khalid stepping up to deliver an outro that really captures the feeling a lot more effectively than Logic does. Look, I'm not really gonna call this great or even good. In terms of songs about suicide, when you have tracks from, say, Pharoah Monch, Sage Francis, Cage, and plenty of others in the indie scene, Logic's operating on a very basic level, but with the exception of the who can relate line, it does actually get those basics, so I'll give him that at least. And finally, number 1, I'm the One by DJ Khaled featuring Justin Bieber, Quavo, Chance the Rapper, and Lil Wayne.
I'm the one, yeah. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm the one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm the only one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm the one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm the only one. Yo, yo.
So as I said earlier, this is a song that went to number 1 because DJ Khaled pulled in enough big names that sheer recognition and clickbait titles is going to push this to the top. Apparently as the second single from his upcoming album Grateful earlier this year after shining with Beyonce and Jay-Z. And while you could mark some of all that down to the quality coming together, what we have instead is a complete non-presence of a singer on the hook, the hottest member of a threesome that I predict will burn out in a couple of years, one of the most recognizable independent talents who is way better than a lot of this material, and Lil Wayne because, well, Lil Wayne. And all this makes the question of the song being any good kind of redundant, but did it find quality almost by accident? Well, you have Justin Bieber's hook, which is passable against a low synth line, a snap, a blur, a pitch-shifted squirting vocals, at least until the hi-hats come in, but it's not like it's got much energy or passion, which you would think when you would need for a love song being so loaded that you could be one for any girl. I guess you want some sort of exuberance in the track, and yet none of it is helped by slathering a bunch of auto-tune on a lot of the performers on this song. Sure, Chance manages to avoid it for his verse, which at least seems to fit the kind of low-key vibe of the instrumentation and production, but it's not a great verse. He's done better. And I actually think that Quavo's verse might actually be better, which despite referencing Bad and Bougie, at least has a few decent punchlines and a good flow. But at the end, it all comes down to Lil Wayne, who seems to miss the memo and spend the track bitching out the girl for calling him, describing their relationship like Whitney and Bobby's. Lil Wayne, that relationship was abusive. And even if you try to flip the verse to flexing on your exes, that doesn't even fit with the rest of the song. What are you doing here? But beyond that, there's not a lot to say about this. I don't see it staying around as a hit for anything beyond an overstuffed guest list, and I certainly don't see it lasting that much longer. When the sales drop out, it'll probably fall off number 1. It's not precisely awful, but it's not really all that good either. But when it comes to a pretty mixed week altogether, yeah, worst of the week is going to Chris Brown and Privacy for just being gross. And Dishonourable mention is going to Woke Up Like This by Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi Vert. The best though, you know what, it's narrow, it's close there, but I'm gonna give it to Slow Hands by Niall Horan with honorable mention to First Time by Kygo and Ellie Goulding. Neither song is great or even all that good, but the first has a certain swagger to it on the bridge that does connect for me, and Ellie Goulding has a good habit of making songs that do grow on me a lot. Next week, honestly, I've got no clue where this is gonna go, but I'm expecting a different number 1 again. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.